It's Kyle here, and with the Acolyte coming up very soon, I've been thinking a lot about the High Republic, and I thought a little fun little exercise for myself would be to kind of pick out some of my favorite characters of the High Republic era so far. And so I went through a lot of thinking about this, went through the High Republic character encyclopedia, thought back about some of my favorite books in the series so far, and I picked out 5 of my favorite characters. Now I'm going to go over these characters, but I'm not going to do them in any specific order. It was hard enough to narrow it down to 5 characters, but to try to rank those 5 characters, I was like, I think I might pass on that. So these are just 5 of my favorite characters of the High Republic series so far. And I should say I'm doing this video in kind of like late May, right before the Acolyte comes out. Obviously, you have the Acolyte, you still have some more books in Phase 3 of the High Republic series, so there could be some new characters I don't even know about yet that eventually could crack into my top 5. But for now, these are my 5 favorite characters in the High Republic. So the first character I wanted to talk about was Bel Zettifar, which is one of the first characters we're introduced to in the Light of the Jedi. He's definitely one of the main characters in that book that really, I think, made a lot of people fall in love with the High Republic. Now, as I get into talking more about Bel's character, this is probably a good point to say, like, I will be spoiling some elements of the character's plot. It's just too hard to kind of talk about what I love about these characters, so I don't really touch on major events that happen to them throughout the series. So if you haven't really read everything in the High Republic yet and you don't want anything spoiled for you, this might not be the video for you. So anyway, with that warning out of the way, let's continue talking about Bel. Obviously, Bel's character, perhaps more than any other character in the series, has really been shaped by loss. He loses his master in a tragic event through the, what we eventually learned are the levelers. So that basically completely shakes him to his core, because from his mind, his master Loden could do no wrong. It was the best Jedi they was, and now suddenly their master's gone. And like, what does Bel do now? He continues to lose other friends and other people he looks up to. He nearly loses his best friend. So, you know, all this is happening. You can definitely see things going bad for him. But for all this, Bel, I really like, he continues to persevere. Now, does he have moments of doubt? Yes. But he continues to try to find this place in the Jedi Order and how to fight back against denial. No, like I said, he definitely has his moments where he struggles, and other masters in the Jedi Order definitely have to mentor him to help him make it through. But I think Bel is the character we really can see how Jedi can deal with loss and not let it destroy them. You know, so, you know, go back to, you know, Star Wars characters like everybody's familiar with. You know, think of Anakin and how loss had just a negative impact on him with his mom and with Qui-Gon that he was never able to come back from. Bel is the example of a character that dealt with similar tragic losses in his life, but at least so far, has found a way to persevere and still continue to have a strong connection to the light side. I've really tried to stay away from making like these big predictions about the High Republic, but I just have a feeling the way Bel was introduced to us in the Light of the Jedi, that Bel will be one of the pivotal characters in how this series wraps up when Phase 3 comes to an end. And I'm very interested to see what role Bel does play in the conclusion of the High Republic series. The next character I'd like to talk about is Vernestra Rwoh, which I think a lot of big fans of the High Republic series are super excited that she will be in the series The Acolyte, so it'll be very interesting to see her in live action, and also a very different version of this character. Because when we're introduced to her in the High Republic book series, she is 15, I believe, if I remember correctly, in the first book we are introduced to her, and she is basically one of the youngest Jedi Knights in the history of the Order. She is for sure a prodigy, and you know, you both have older masters that are kind of looking at her as the future of the Order, but also younger Padawans, even people her similar age are kind of looking at, you know, she is the best of us. She is going to be the next great Jedi, and we're, you know, all curious to see where her path takes her. With everybody having so much confidence there, I think the thing that I found very interesting about Vernestra right away is she has a lot of doubts. She's very much, you know, when we're introduced to her, like, yes, she's the youngest Jedi Knight in the Order and one of the youngest ever, but the entire time it's like, do I really deserve to be this? And she definitely struggles to figure out what her place is in the order, because she's this young person who has a lot of authority. So there's Padawans that are the same age as her, in some cases older her, that technically now they're superior. She doesn't really feel like she's in a place to really be a mentor to people that are the same age as her. But then there's also Jedi that are older than her that are definitely, treating her as equals, and she doesn't feel like that yet. She definitely very much has imposter syndrome, which is something that obviously a lot of people deal with in real life. I think everybody deals with. And I think this is really the first Jedi that we've seen in Star Wars that we're definitely seeing this explored, that, she doesn't feel like she deserves all the accolades that she's got. She's coming to grips with that and kind of learning more about herself. There's a lot of self-doubt in somebody that really is maybe one of the most powerful Jedi in this era. Also love the fact that, even though she's does have self-doubt, at the same time she does have enough confidence to try to, chart her own path. So instead of having a traditional lightsaber, she has a light whip, which is kind of not technically allowed, but she's trying to get away with it. And it's very cool to kind of see more of that. And I think a lot of people are very excited for the Acolyte and hoping we see the light whip in live action. That would be very cool. But for Vernestra, again, kind of connecting Bell back to Anakin. I think Vernestra is another character that you can kind of connect back to Anakin, because in some ways she is like this generation's version of Anakin, where Anakin's, as we see him in the later prequel movies, he's the young prodigy that the entire Order is looking to be the future of the Order. For this era, I think everybody's looking at Vernestra for the same thing. It's like, you are the future of the Order. And it's kind of interesting to see how she is dealing with that pressure, differently than the way Anakin did. If anything, Anakin becomes way cocky and way overconfident, where Vernestra, if anything, is struggling with her confidence and trying to come to grips with it. And as the series goes on, we've been there. As the series goes along, we begin to see her become more confident and grow into herself and feel more confident being a Jedi Knight. And I'm very interested to see what type of character she is when we were introduced to her in The Acolyte. The next character I wanted to talk about is Porter Engle, which I think, in Phase 1 of the High Republic, he was kind of more of a secondary character, but I think he quickly became a lot of people's favorite secondary character. His backstory was just utterly fascinating. We're introduced to him as this old Jedi who is just a chef. He cooks for other Jedi in this remote outpost. But at the same time, all the Jedi at this outpost tell stories about Porter Engle being this legendary Jedi warrior, perhaps the best lightsaber duelist in the history of the Order. This warrior that has stories that other Jedi can't even believe he was able to accomplish. And he's put that behind him. He's decided to be this cook. And I think everybody, when you read this backstory about him in these early books, you're like, I want to learn more about Porter Engle. Luckily in Phase 2, we get to explore more of him, where he begins to earn these legends that we hear about him in Phase 1. But there's also moments in Phase 1 where he kind of is forced to put away his life as a cook and embrace the way of a warrior again. And he does these things and battles that other Jedi look at and go like, wow, this is amazing. I cannot believe you're able to do this. I almost kind of think of him, he's like this era Star Wars version of John Wick, where all these people just tell these stories like, did you hear this story about what Porter Engle was able to do? He's an utterly fascinating character, and I'm looking forward to learn more about his backstory. I think we will. He's been a character I've loved a lot, and I definitely want more Porter Engle content in the High Republic series. Next up, I want to talk about a character that we were introduced to in Phase 2 of the High Republic series, and this is the only character on this list that I'm kind of highlighting that was introduced to us in Phase 2. And in a lot of ways, she is the main character of Phase 2, and that is Marda Ro. Her character is utterly fascinating. And one thing I enjoyed the most about Phase 2 was the exploration of the path of the open hand, and really exploring what cults are like and how a cult would operate in the world of Star Wars. When we're introduced to Marda, she is very much a follower of the cult. And, she's that typical cult member that basically believes the leadership could do no wrong. She has no doubts. She is a firm believer. But as the series goes along in phase 2, we see her begin to have doubts, and we begin to wonder, is she going to make her way out? But then as the series goes along, she takes that opposite step and basically commits even further to the belief of the cult and becomes a diehard believer. And basically anybody that remotely disagrees with her is an enemy and basically deserves to die. And then she begins to quest power, and in a lot of ways it's not the belief of the cult that's no longer important to her. Now she just wants power. She wants to be in control. She wants other people to follow her. She definitely we begin to think, is this going to be a good character? By the end, she is not a good character. She is definitely very much chosen the dark side. She is going down that path that sadly, we see a lot of people in our reality. A lot of times when we have these stories in our real world where there's a cult leader and we kind of read about what they did and how they abused their followers, we kind of wonder, like, how did this person get to that point? We get to see that story with Marda Ro in the High Republic, and it was utterly fascinating. We've never seen anything like this before in Star Wars, and I'm glad they took this chance of kind of exploring cults and how it can impact and affect different people. And we see kind of the worst case scenario with Marda Ro, and she is such a fascinating character and such a cautionary tale of the real life dangers of cults. So I really enjoyed Marda Ro's character development, even though she didn't develop in the most positive way. She was still a fascinating character to read about. And the last character in my top 5 that I wanted to highlight is Elzar Mann. Elzar, I think, is the characters that I'm highlighting on this list. I really don't know where this character's storyline is going to go yet. Elzar is presented as one of the more influential Jedi Masters of his generation. He is very powerful, but he also struggles with his place in the Force, and he has some tendencies to maybe start leaning a little bit to the dark side. He's a little bit of a rebel. He kind of flaunts the rules a little bit. Again, a little bit like Anakin. He's the one that probably doesn't take as seriously the Jedi rule about not having connection. So he definitely develops very close relationships with his fellow Jedi, maybe friendships, or maybe a little bit deeper than the Order would like. Definitely love interests that the Jedi Order would not be initially in favor of. Stuff happens that impacts those types of close relationships. Much like Anakin, you see him to kind of dip towards the dark side. Now, so far, Elzar has realized he's been dipping towards the dark side, and every time that happens, he asks for help to try to bring him back to the light side. But as Phase 3 of the High Republic kind of develops, I think everybody's question is like, what's going to happen with Elzar? Will he stay on the light side, or we'll see him go to the dark side? And how will that impact the Order? Really, at this moment, I do not have a prediction, but I'm slightly scared that we might see him go full dark, and that will be a very sad moment if it does. But anyway, those are my 5 favorite characters in the High Republic series. Honestly, there's probably another 10, 15, 20 characters that I'd love to spotlight, but it'd be way too long of a video. So in the comment section below, let me know who are some of your favorite characters in the High Republic series. I definitely would be curious to see if there's any characters you mentioned that I almost put on this list. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have, hit that like button. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate the support. Thanks for watching. I'll see you the next time, and may the Force be with you.